After 8 long and bloody years of war and genocide led by Kiev regime against Russian population in East Ukraine, Russia finally officially recognized Republic of Donbass. And this day will become a turning point in Russian history. According to President Putin, Ukraine will not get off with Donbass alone, but this is not a key thing today. Recognition is not declaration of war against Ukraine, it's declaration of war against West, and the very fact of recognition Donetsk and Lugansk republics caused a political crisis in Europe. In geopolitics we are always objects of influence as statistical units, which is the essence of global power, and the person ruling a country demonstrates natural human emotions. He is either too weak or incredibly strong. There is no middle ground there. A person who is able to tell the whole history of the post-Soviet countries emotionally, clearly, logically, and what's the most important, openly declares war on the West is not a weak. Weak ones are simply afraid to take the wrong step and certainly not able to make decisions with global impact. Whoever does not understand what I'm talking about, look at Zelensky, Scholz, or Johnson. Just a few hours ago, Syria, Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua had already recognized Donbass republics. Yes, of course, these countries are far from being world leaders, but Russia is. Putin's speech was far beyond the recognition of republics. It was all about geopolitics, about the new world order, and Russia's place in this new world order. In this world, Russophobia has become a punishable act, and those who previously complained that Putin is not enough Putin, from now will face difficulties. Putin did everything possible and impossible to preserve sovereignty of Ukraine, but if patient is determined to get into the morgue, then no one will ever try to stop him. Ukraine now is in a panic. Britain is announcing sanctions against Russia. Biden is gathering his National Security Council due to the situation in Ukraine. Scholz is upset. Macron is nervously combing his hair while being on the phone with Kremlin non-stop since last Friday. As President of Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin said, those who seized and hold power in Kiev must stop the war immediately, otherwise the entire responsibility of bloodshed will lie entirely on them. This is no longer a precaution, this is a direct order to cease fire. At the same time, Putin clearly understands that the iron curtain between Russia and the West will be built in any case. In fact, the West was building it for a long time now. One of the most important points of Putin's decree on Donbass is to maintain peace, and Russian armed forces will start Operation Donbass just to do that. Formally, Russian troops will enter former Ukraine territory, which from the point of view of Kiev is invasion. But here's the most important word: former. The first units of Russian army have already moved to defend Donbass, which means end of eastern front of Ukraine. Now any drone launched from that side will be considered an attack on peacekeepers. This in turn means that not only armed forces of Ukraine and national battalions, but also the fighters of British PMC, who are taking part in Donbass offensive, are under attack. But here's the interesting fact: these are not actually British, as many people think. These are Poles hired by British. Around 4,000 of them are taking part in war. European Union has already announced that there are no plans to cut Russia from SWIFT, as well as to get rid of Russian energy resources. There is no replacement of this, and there is no on the agenda. EU also will not impose sanctions against Russia in regards to the recognition of Donetsk and Lugansk republics immediately, as want to see Moscow's next steps. They are actually scared, especially after Putin said that the ones who are responsible for tragedy in Odessa in 2014 would be found and punished. In other words, Russia is not going to stop in Donbass. The most interesting stuff for Kiev, Brussels and Washington is just about to begin. The recent visit of Deputy Prime Minister Yuri Borisov to Nicaragua, Venezuela and Cuba is just proof of this. Moscow for the first time in 30 years officially abandoned the principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of the states, which means that now our bases can appear anywhere in the world, even in the most unexpected places.
Вы хотите декоммунизации? Ну что же, нас это вполне устраивает. Но не нужно, что называется, останавливаться на полпути. Мы готовы показать вам, что значит для Украины настоящая декоммунизация.
Words about decommunization are a soft reminder about communist past of Eastern Europe. Not only Kiev, but also Warsaw, Sofia, Prague, and a number of other Eastern European capitals shuddered. Putin hints turned out to be thick, that he will understand far beyond the borders of Ukraine. What is important here is that the puppet Kiev regime is now in crisis, a very serious crisis. Far-right fanatics will not forgive Zelensky for surrendering Donbass. The southeast of Ukraine massively writes in public, "What about us?" and when they will join us. HS-130 transport aircraft currently exporting assets from Kiev to the west, places on the chassis of American transport workers taken off from Borispol are booked a month in advance. No less serious crisis now taking place in Europe. Alexander Vucic states a new world order, and Moscow is no longer paying attention to words of Scholz and Macron. Decisions have been made and are not subject to revision. Happy birthday, Donbass. Happy birthday, Russian Donbass, with the future returning home with the administrative boundaries of Donetsk and Lugansk regions of the Ukrainian USSR. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell.